My name is Vex Theta, and I serve as a senior observer for the Galactic Council's Historical Documentation Division. For the past 300 cycles, I have recorded the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth of stars, and the quiet death of forgotten worlds. I have witnessed wars that consumed entire sectors, plagues that reduced thriving species to mere memories, and cosmic events that reshaped the very fabric of space-time itself. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what I am about to document. It began on standard galactic date 4847.3 at precisely 0600 hours when our long-range sensors detected something that should have been impossible. The Obsidian Seal, that ancient prison we had all learned about in our basic galactic history courses, was cracking. Let me pause here for those unfamiliar with our galaxy's most terrifying bedtime story. The Obsidian Seal was constructed by the first ones, a civilization so advanced that we still cannot comprehend their technology, roughly 50 million years ago. They built it to contain something so horrifically dangerous that every species in the galaxy, regardless of their differences, agreed to never, ever, under any circumstances, go near it. The sealed region occupied an entire dead zone in the outer rim, surrounded by warning beacons in 7,000 different languages, all saying essentially the same thing. Do not approach. Do not investigate. Do not even think about what might be inside. Just keep flying and pretend this place does not exist. For 50 million years, that advice worked perfectly. Until today. Vex Theta. The communication burst from Council Prime came through with enough urgency to make my sensory appendages quiver. Are you monitoring grid section Omega 97? Affirmative, Council Prime, I responded, though my voice carried a tremor I could not quite suppress. I am observing what appears to be structural failure in the Obsidian Seal. Structural failure? The voice belonged to High Chancellor Morkashian, whose species had never been known for panic. Today, however, his words cracked with barely contained terror. Vex Theta, that thing is not failing. It is being torn apart from the inside. I adjusted my long-range sensors and focused on the anomaly. What I saw next will haunt my dreams for whatever remains of my lifespan. The Obsidian Seal, a sphere of impossible black material the size of a small moon, was developing fissures. But these were not ordinary cracks. They pulsed with a sickly purple light that seemed to bend space around itself, and from each crack, something was emerging. The void spawn had awakened. They defied every law of physics and biology that our civilizations had spent millennia establishing. These creatures existed in a state between matter and energy, shifting between dimensions as easily as we breathe atmosphere. Some appeared as writhing masses of tentacles covered in eyes that looked in directions that should not exist. Others resembled geometric shapes that hurt to perceive directly, their angles cutting through reality itself. But the worst part, they were hungry. Incredibly, impossibly, devastatingly hungry. Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha is now in effect. High Chancellor Morkashian's announcement echoed across every communication channel in the galaxy. All civilian populations are to begin immediate evacuation procedures. Military forces are to establish defensive perimeters around inhabited systems. This is not a drill. I watched through my sensors as the first void spawn reached the nearby Kepler 442 system. The system contained 7 planets, 3 of which hosted thriving colonies belonging to the peaceful Trilaxian species. The creatures approached the star first. What happened next violated everything I thought I knew about cosmic mechanics. The void spawn surrounded the star and began to consume it. Not in any way that made scientific sense. They did not absorb its matter or redirect its energy. They simply made it cease to exist. The star did not explode or collapse. It just stopped being there, leaving behind a perfect sphere of absolute nothingness. Without their star, the 7 planets froze instantly. But the void spawn were not finished. They moved to each world and repeated the process. Entire civilizations, Billions of Trilaxians with their art, culture, and history spanning thousands of years simply vanished, not destroyed, not killed, erased from existence as if they had never been. By the ancient codes, I whispered, my recording equipment barely capturing my words. They are not just killing, they are unmaking reality itself. Across the galaxy, panic spread faster than light-speed communication networks could carry the news. The proud Zentaurian Empire, masters of 1,000 worlds, immediately began evacuating their core systems. The hive mind collective, which had never shown fear in their entire recorded existence, started broadcasting surrender negotiations to empty space, hoping the void spawn might somehow hear and show mercy. The mechanical forge minds, who calculated probabilities with quantum precision, announced their conclusion: total galactic extinction within 847 standard days. Their recommendation was immediate retreat to the nearest parallel universe. Even the ethereal wanderers, beings of pure energy who had transcended physical form eons ago, began fleeing to dimensions beyond our current reality. But the most telling reaction came from the Canthari War Masters, the most aggressive military force in known space. These were beings who had conquered 60% of the galaxy through sheer brutality and tactical superiority. They took one look at the advancing void spawn and immediately ordered a full retreat to their most heavily fortified worlds, concealing themselves behind energy barriers that could withstand supernovas. If the Canthari are running, my assistant Zal Prime observed over our private channel, then perhaps we should consider updating our last wills and testimonies. I could not disagree with that assessment. As I prepared my initial report for the Council archives, I realized I was likely documenting the final chapter of galactic civilization. The void spawn were spreading outward from their prison at an exponential rate, consuming everything in their path. Mathematical projections suggested they would reach the core worlds within 300 days. Every species, every civilization, every form of intelligent life in our galaxy was responding to this threat in exactly the same way, with terror, retreat, and desperate survival protocols. Well, almost every species. There was one inhabited system that had not yet responded to the emergency broadcasts. A small, unremarkable world in the outer territories, populated by a recently discovered species that had barely achieved faster than light travel. The planet was called Earth, and its dominant species called themselves humans. Surely, when they received the warnings about the approaching cosmic horror, they would follow the same logical survival protocols as every other civilized species in the galaxy. Surely. Meh. I have spent the last 72 hours questioning my own sanity. When every other species in the galaxy responds to an existential threat with logical terror, and one species responds with what can only be described as enthusiastic preparation for a really good fight, you begin to wonder if your translation protocols are malfunctioning. But no, I have checked and double-checked my equipment. The readings are accurate. The humans are not fleeing. They are not hiding. They are not seeking refuge in distant galaxies or parallel dimensions. They are mobilizing for war. At 0800 hours, Standard Galactic Time, exactly 72 hours after the first emergency broadcasts, Earth finally responded to the galactic crisis. Their message was broadcast on all frequencies, transmitted to every civilized world, and delivered with the kind of confidence that suggested they had been planning for this moment their entire existence. Attention, galactic community, the message began, delivered by a human female identified as Admiral Jessica Kane, commanding officer of the human space fleet. We have received your warnings about the void spawn threat. We appreciate the information. However, we will not be evacuating. I paused my recording to recalibrate my translation matrix. Surely there had been some error in the linguistic processing. Furthermore, Admiral Kane continued, we wish to inform the galactic community that Earth is now under martial law. All civilian space traffic is being redirected to military purposes. We are converting our entire civilization to a war footing. To any species that wish to coordinate defensive efforts, we welcome your assistance. To any species that prefer to hide or flee, we wish you the best of luck. The transmission ended with what I can only describe as the most terrifying sound I have ever heard: human laughter. Zal Prime, I called to my assistant. Please confirm that I correctly understood that communication. Affirmative, Vex Theta, came the reply. The humans have declared war on cosmic horror itself. That is, not a normal response. Indeed, it appears to be uniquely human. Over the following days, I observed the most bizarre military mobilization in galactic history. The humans were not just preparing to defend themselves, they were preparing to hunt. Earth's orbital shipyards, which had previously been producing cargo vessels and passenger transports, were now retrofitting every available craft for combat. Merchant ships designed to carry grain and manufactured goods were being equipped with energy cannons and missile launchers. Passenger liners that once ferried tourists between star systems were being converted into troop transports and mobile command centers. But the truly insane part was how they were adapting their civilian infrastructure for military purposes. Human mining equipment, designed for extracting resources from asteroids, was being modified into kinetic bombardment systems. Their industrial fabrication plants, originally built for manufacturing consumer goods, were now producing ammunition and armor plating. Even their agricultural systems were being repurposed to support the war effort. By the ancient codes, I whispered as I watched a human mining platform in the asteroid belt, they are turning their entire civilization into a weapon. But what truly baffled me were the speeches. Human leaders across their planet were addressing their population with messages that defied every principle of rational crisis management. Instead of preparing their people for evacuation or survival protocols, they were delivering what could only be described as motivational presentations about the upcoming conflict. My fellow humans, declared President Marcus Webb during a global broadcast, for too long, we have fought among ourselves over resources, territory, and ideology. Today we face an enemy that threatens not just our world but our very existence. And I have only one thing to say about that. He paused, looked directly into the camera, and smiled. Finally, a worthy opponent. The response from the human population was not panic or despair. It was cheering. Actual cheering. They were celebrating the approach of cosmic horror as if it were some kind of holiday. This is unprecedented, I noted in my report. When faced with extinction, humans appear to experience excitement. General Patricia Hayes, commander of Human Ground Forces, held her own press conference shortly afterward. The Void Spawn have made a critical error in judgment, she announced. They have given humanity a common enemy. Throughout our history, we have been our own worst enemy. We fight wars over differences in opinion, compete for limited resources, and argue about the most trivial matters. She gestured to a holographic display showing the approaching threat. But when something threatens our entire species, when something comes to our home with the intention of erasing us from existence, we stop fighting each other and start fighting it. And we are very, very good at fighting. The crowd of military personnel behind her erupted in what I can only describe as aggressive enthusiasm. Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of Human Scientific Research, provided perhaps the most disturbing perspective of all during her briefing to the global scientific community. The Void Spawn represent an unprecedented opportunity, she explained with the kind of excitement typically reserved for discovering new planets or breakthrough technologies. These entities operate on principles that violate our current understanding of physics and biology. If we can study them, capture specimens, and reverse engineer their abilities, we could advance human science by thousands of years. I had to pause the recording again. She was talking about cosmic horrors that could unmake reality itself as if they were research opportunities. Did she just suggest capturing specimens of the things that erased the Trilaxian civilization? I asked Zal Prime. Affirmative. She appears to be planning experiments on cosmic horrors. Correct. That is completely insane. Also uniquely human, it would seem. But the most disturbing transmission came from Captain Rex Morrison, commander of a human deep space exploration vessel. We have been monitoring the Void Spawn advance for the past week, he reported. They consumed the Kepler 442 system approximately 6 days ago, and they are currently working their way through the Vega sector. Based on their current trajectory and consumption rate, they will reach human space in approximately 47 days. He paused, and I could almost hear him grinning through the communication link. That gives us 47 days to prepare the warmest welcome we can manage. I suggest we make it memorable. The human response was so fundamentally different from every other species that I began to question whether they truly understood the nature of the threat they were facing. So I accessed their communication networks and reviewed their scientific analysis of the void spawn. What I found was both thorough and terrifying. The humans had not misunderstood the threat. They knew exactly what they were dealing with. They had studied the sensor data from the destroyed systems, analyzed the capabilities of the cosmic horrors, and calculated the odds of survival with mathematical precision. Their conclusion was that they had approximately a 3% chance of defeating the void spawn using conventional tactics. Their response to this information was not despair or acceptance of inevitable defeat. It was to start developing unconventional tactics. If conventional warfare has a 3% success rate, declared General Hayes during a strategy meeting I managed to intercept, then we need to become very unconventional very quickly. What did you have in mind? Asked Admiral Kane. Everything, Hayes replied. We throw everything we have at them. Every weapon, every strategy, every desperate idea that might possibly work. And if that fails, we improvise. Improvise against cosmic horror? Why not? They might be ancient and powerful, but they have never fought humans before. They do not know what we are capable of. Hell, we do not know what we are capable of when properly motivated. The meeting erupted in what I was beginning to recognize as typical human enthusiasm for impossible challenges. I ended my observation session and began composing my preliminary report for the Council. Subject: Human response to void spawn threat. I began typing. Summary: instead of following logical survival protocols, humans appear to be treating the approaching cosmic horror as a combination military exercise, scientific opportunity, and personal challenge. They have mobilized their entire civilization for warfare against entities that can unmake reality itself. I paused, considering how to phrase the next section. Recommendation: monitor human activities closely. They may be about to do something unprecedented. What that something might be, I could not begin to imagine. But given what I had observed of human behavior over the past week, I suspected it would be either brilliant or catastrophic. Possibly both. If I thought human behavior was incomprehensible before, what I witnessed over the following weeks redefined my entire understanding of the word insane. The human military-industrial complex, once focused on producing consumer goods and maintaining a modest defensive fleet, transformed into something that can only be described as a civilization-sized weapon factory. The speed and efficiency of this transformation violated every principle of economic and social theory I had studied during my 3 centuries of observation work. Let me begin with their most audacious project, weaponizing their own star. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the same human scientist who had expressed excitement about capturing void spawn specimens, appeared in another broadcast that made me question the structural integrity of reality itself. Project Solar Flare has received full authorization from the Global Defense Council, she announced, standing in front of what appeared to be a massive construction site orbiting dangerously close to Earth's sun. We are installing gravitational manipulation devices directly into Sol's corona. I had to replay this transmission 3 times to ensure my translation protocols were functioning correctly. The plan is elegantly simple, Dr. Vasquez continued. When the void spawn enter our solar system, we will trigger controlled stellar eruptions, directing massive solar flares precisely at their position. Think of it as turning our sun into the galaxy's largest directed energy weapon. Zal Prime, I called urgently, are the humans attempting to manually trigger stellar events. Affirmative, Vex Theta. They appear to be treating their primary energy source as ammunition. That is, I struggled to find appropriate words. That is absolutely terrifying. It also appears to be working. Their gravitational manipulation technology is successfully interfacing with stellar mechanics. I watched in horrified fascination as human engineering teams deployed massive gravitational field generators into their sun's outer atmosphere. These devices, which should have been vaporized instantly by the stellar heat, were somehow maintaining structural integrity while disrupting the star's natural magnetic field patterns. If this goes wrong, I noted in my report, they will destroy their entire solar system. If it goes right, Zal Prime observed, they will have created a weapon capable of sterilizing large sections of space. But Project Solar Flare was merely the beginning of human weapons development. Captain Rex Morrison, the Deep Space Exploration Commander, had apparently been given unlimited resources and told to get creative. His solution involved converting the asteroid belt into the largest kinetic bombardment system in galactic history. "We have placed ion drives on approximately 40,000 asteroids," he reported during a military briefing. "Each one has been equipped with navigation systems, targeting computers, and enough propulsion to reach significant percentages of light speed." He gestured to a holographic display showing the asteroid belt, which now resembled a vast cloud of guided missiles. "When the void spawn arrive, we will launch coordinated kinetic strikes from multiple vectors. 40,000 asteroids, each massing between 10 million and 50 billion tons, traveling at relativistic velocities. Even cosmic horrors have to obey physics when something that massive hits them at those speeds." General Hayes nodded approvingly. "And if the kinetic bombardment fails? Then we detonate the antimatter charges we have installed in the larger asteroids," Morrison replied casually. "We figure if you are going to throw rocks at cosmic horror, you might as well throw nuclear rocks." I paused my observation to recalibrate my sensors. The humans had not just weaponized their asteroid belt. They had turned it into a directed star system killer that they were planning to deploy in their own neighborhood. "They are preparing to turn their home system into a battlefield," I reported to the Council. "They appear to be operating under the assumption that victory is worth any level of collateral damage, including potentially destroying their own habitat." But the most disturbing development was their experimentation with what they called exotic physics. Dr. Margaret Foster, head of theoretical research, made an announcement that sent chills through my sensory apparatus. "We have successfully replicated several technologies based on our analysis of void spawn capabilities," she declared. Project Reality Anchor has produced functional devices that can stabilize local space-time against dimensional manipulation. She held up a device that hurt to look at directly. It appeared to exist in several dimensions simultaneously while maintaining a coherent structure that defied geometric logic. Additionally, Project Null Zone has weaponized quantum uncertainty principles. We can now create localized areas where the laws of physics become negotiable. "Negotiable physics?" General Hayes asked. "Essentially, we can create zones where reality operates according to different rules. If the void spawn can unmake things by existing outside normal physical laws, we can unmake them by changing what those laws are in the first place." I had to stop recording and take a moment to process this information. The humans were not just preparing to fight cosmic horror. They were preparing to fight it by becoming cosmic horror themselves. "Zal Prime," I called weakly. "The humans are experimenting with fundamental reality manipulation." "Yes, I noticed. They appear to be reverse engineering the void spawn's abilities and weaponizing them. That is exactly the kind of technology that responsible civilizations agree never to develop. The humans do not appear to be overly concerned with responsible limitations." Dr. Foster's presentation continued with increasingly alarming revelations. "Project Paradox engine has successfully created stable temporal anomalies," she reported. "We can now slow time in localized areas, accelerate aging processes, or create causality loops that trap targets in repeating temporal cycles." She activated a demonstration device, and I watched part of the laboratory exist in fast forward while the rest operated normally. Project Mirror Dimension has opened stable portals to parallel realities. We can redirect attacks into alternate universes, summon resources from dimensions where Earth was never inhabited, or potentially banish threats to realities where they will become someone else's problem. Admiral Kane raised her hand. Are we certain these technologies are safe to use? Dr. Foster's response encapsulated everything terrifying about human problem-solving. Absolutely not. We barely understand how any of this works. But the Void Spawn do not understand it either, which means we will be equally confused about what is happening. In a situation where confusion is inevitable, we prefer to be the ones causing it. The logic was simultaneously brilliant and horrifying. But perhaps the most impressive demonstration of human military mobilization was their production capacity. In just 3 weeks, they had constructed more military hardware than most civilizations produce in a century. Their factories, operating continuously with minimal maintenance breaks, were churning out weapons, armor, spacecraft, and exotic technology at a rate that defied industrial capacity calculations. How are they managing this level of production? I asked Zal Prime. They appear to have eliminated inefficiency by removing all activities not directly related to military preparation. Entertainment, luxury goods, non-essential services, even most educational programs have been suspended. Their entire civilization is now focused on a single objective: killing cosmic horror. I reviewed their production reports and confirmed the analysis. Humans had essentially converted their entire society into a military organization. Every factory, every research facility, every resource extraction operation was now contributing to their war effort. They have achieved total mobilization in less than a month, I noted in my report. This level of social coordination should be impossible without decades of preparation. Unless, Zal Prime observed, they are naturally adapted for rapid militarization in response to existential threats. What kind of species evolves such capabilities? Perhaps one that faced regular existential threats during its evolutionary development. I accessed human historical records and immediately regretted the decision. Human history was essentially a continuous record of warfare, natural disasters, disease outbreaks, resource conflicts, and survival challenges. These beings had spent their entire evolutionary development learning to rapidly mobilize against threats that could destroy their civilization. The Void Spawn were not presenting humans with an unprecedented challenge. They were presenting them with a familiar problem that happened to be larger than usual. Oh, by the ancient codes, I whispered as the implications became clear. They are not learning how to fight cosmic horror. They already know how. They are just scaling up. As if to confirm my realization, Admiral Kane made another broadcast to our galactic neighbors who are monitoring human activities. She began looking directly into the camera as if she could see me personally. We appreciate your concern about our preparation methods. Yes, we are taking significant risks. Yes, we are experimenting with dangerous technologies. Yes, we are potentially destabilizing our entire solar system. She paused, and that terrifying human smile appeared again. But here is what you need to understand about humanity. We have been fighting impossible odds our entire existence. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us daily. We survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, plagues, and countless wars against each other. We turned every challenge into an opportunity to become stronger, smarter, and more dangerous. She gestured toward space, in the direction of the approaching Void Spawn. These cosmic horrors think they are coming to erase another helpless civilization. What they are actually doing is giving humanity our greatest opportunity yet to prove that nothing in this universe is too big, too powerful, or too ancient for us to find a way to kill it. The transmission ended with sounds of cheering from the human military command center. I filed my report with a single conclusion. Humanity is either about to achieve the impossible or destroy themselves in the most spectacular fashion in galactic history. Possibly both simultaneously. The Void Spawn were now 12 days away from human space. I found myself genuinely uncertain about who I should be more afraid of. The Void Spawn arrived in human space at 1,347 hours, standard galactic time, on day 47 of the crisis. I had positioned my observation post at maximum sensor range, expecting to document the final moments of human civilization. Based on previous encounters, the pattern was always the same. The cosmic horrors would appear at the edge of a system, begin their systematic unmaking of reality, and within hours, another star system would simply cease to exist. What happened instead challenged every assumption I had made about cosmic horror, human behavior, and the fundamental nature of reality itself. The void spawn materialized at the outer edge of human space in their usual terrifying fashion. Dozens of writhing masses of impossible geometry, creatures that existed in several dimensions simultaneously, entities whose very presence caused space-time to ripple and distort. They moved with the inevitable certainty of a cosmic force, approaching the inner system where Earth waited. I prepared myself to witness the end of humanity. Instead, I witnessed the beginning of something far more disturbing. Contact established with unknown entities, Admiral Kane announced over human military frequencies. All units, initiate protocol Poke the Bear. Repeat, we are now poking the bear. Protocol Poke the Bear? I muttered to Zal Prime. What kind of military designation is that? I believe it translates roughly to deliberately provoke the cosmic horror to see what happens, my assistant replied. The human response was immediate and completely insane. Instead of defensive formations or evacuation procedures, human ships began approaching the void spawn. Not attacking them, not fleeing from them, but getting close enough to collect data. Science vessel Darwin, you are cleared for close approach, came the transmission from human command. Maintain minimum safe distance of... Wait, do we have a minimum safe distance for cosmic horror? Negative. Control, replied Captain Sarah Mitchell from the science vessel. We are making it up as we go along. Outstanding. Proceed with data collection. I watched in horrified fascination as the human science vessel approached to within a few thousand kilometers of a creature that had previously erased entire star systems. The void spawn entity, a writhing mass of tentacles and impossible angles that hurt to observe directly, seemed to notice the approaching ship. What happened next defied every prediction model I possessed. The void spawn reached out with one of its reality-distorting appendages, clearly intending to unmake the human vessel in the same manner it had eliminated countless civilizations. The appendage struck the ship and bounced off. Reality anchor is holding, reported Captain Mitchell with obvious excitement. Repeat, the exotic physics countermeasures are working. The entity cannot affect our local space-time. Excellent, came Admiral Kane's response. Deploy containment field and prepare for specimen collection. Specimen collection? I repeated weakly. The human science vessel launched what appeared to be a modified cargo container equipped with the same reality anchoring technology. The container enveloped a smaller void spawn entity, and suddenly the cosmic horror found itself trapped in a box where normal physics applied. We have successfully captured a Class 3 cosmic horror, Captain Mitchell reported. It appears confused and is attempting various reality manipulation techniques, none of which are functioning within the containment field. Bring it aboard for analysis, Admiral Kane ordered. Dr. Foster is standing by with the xenobiology team. I had to pause my recording to process what I had just witnessed. Humans had not only survived first contact with cosmic horror, they had captured one for scientific study. Zal Prime, I called urgently. Are the humans treating cosmic horror as a research opportunity? Affirmative. They appear to be approaching existential threat with scientific curiosity rather than terror. That is not how any of this is supposed to work. Dr. Foster's voice came over the human communication channels as the captured void spawn was brought aboard the science vessel. Fascinating, she reported. The entity appears to exist in a state of quantum superposition, maintaining coherent structure across multiple dimensional planes. Its reality manipulation abilities seem to function by locally altering the fundamental constants of physics. Can we replicate that capability? Asked Admiral Kane. Already working on it. Give me 6 hours. 6 hours. She wanted 6 hours to reverse engineer abilities that had taken cosmic entities millions of years to develop. The most disturbing part was that I believed she could do it. Meanwhile, the larger void spawn entities had noticed the capture of their smaller companion and were responding with what I could only interpret as anger. They began moving toward Earth with increased velocity, their forms rippling with energy that made space itself seem to vibrate. The human response was not panic or retreat. It was tactical analysis. Hostile entities are accelerating, reported Captain Morrison from his command ship. They appear to be exhibiting emotional responses to the capture event. Emotional responses? Admiral Kane asked. Affirmative. They are angry. Cosmic horror is apparently capable of getting annoyed when we steal their friends. Excellent intelligence. Deploy Phase 2 of Project Solar Flare. I watched in stunned silence as human gravitational manipulation devices triggered a controlled stellar eruption. A massive solar flare, precisely directed by artificial magnetic fields, erupted from Earth's sun and swept across the approaching void spawn. The results were immediate and spectacular. Several of the cosmic horrors were caught directly in the stellar plasma stream, instead of being unaffected. As I expected from entities that could unmake reality, they began to dissolve. The solar flare was somehow disrupting their dimensional coherence, forcing them back into normal space-time where they became vulnerable to conventional physics. A direct hit, reported the Solar Monitoring Station. Enemy entities are experiencing structural degradation when exposed to high-energy stellar radiation. They have a weakness, Admiral Kane observed with satisfaction. They can manipulate reality, but they still need to exist somewhere to do it. Engulf them into normal space, and they become mortal. Dr. Foster's voice crackled over the communication channels. I can confirm that hypothesis. Our captured specimen becomes significantly less dangerous when prevented from accessing alternate dimensions. It is still extremely hostile, but it can be contained and studied. What have you learned so far? Their abilities appear to function through quantum tunneling effects combined with localized alterations to space-time curvature. In simple terms, they cheat physics by temporarily changing the rules. But if you can prevent them from changing the rules, they have to play by our rules, Admiral Kane finished. Precisely, and we are very good at our rules. The battle continued for several hours, but it was unlike any conflict I had ever observed. Instead of desperate defensive actions, humans were conducting what could only be described as aggressive scientific experiments. They captured more specimens. They tested different weapons against various entity types. They documented how different void spawn varieties responded to different forms of attack. They were treating the invasion as an opportunity to expand their understanding of exotic physics. Most disturbing of all, they were winning. This is impossible, I reported to the Council. Cosmic horrors that have consumed dozens of star systems are being systematically defeated by a species that achieved faster-than-light travel less than 2 centuries ago. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Zax-9, we have overestimated the threat posed by the void spawn. No, I replied, watching another human science team successfully contain a creature that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. I think we have severely underestimated the threat posed by humans. Captain Mitchell's latest report confirmed my growing suspicions. We have successfully reverse-engineered basic dimensional manipulation technology, she announced. Dr. Foster's team has created functional prototypes of reality-anchoring weapons, dimensional phase shifters, and localized space-time distortion generators. How long until we can mass-produce these technologies? Asked Admiral Kane. Assuming we can maintain our current specimen collection rate, approximately 18 hours. 18 hours to weaponize cosmic horror technology. Furthermore, Dr. Foster added, we have identified several potential improvements to the original design. The void spawn abilities are impressive, but they lack efficiency. We can build better versions. Better than cosmic horror? Admiral Kane asked. Much better. These entities rely on brute force manipulation of reality. We can achieve the same effects with significantly less energy expenditure and much greater precision. I realized, with growing horror, that humans were not just defeating the void spawn. They were preparing to become something worse. Zal Prime, I whispered. I believe we may have been observing this situation from the wrong perspective. How so? We assumed the humans were the victims in this scenario. I think they might actually be the predators. As if to confirm my realization, Admiral Kane made another broadcast to the galaxy, to any civilizations monitoring this conflict. She announced, "We want to assure you that humanity has the situation under control. The void spawn threat will be neutralized shortly. However, we should probably discuss the long-term implications of recent technological developments once the immediate crisis is resolved." The transmission ended with what I was beginning to recognize as the sound of humans preparing to do something that would terrify the rest of the galaxy. The cosmic horrors had made a critical error. They had given humanity new toys to play with. What happened next will forever change how I think about the concepts of proportional response and reasonable escalation. Within 72 hours of first contact, humanity had not only repelled the void spawn invasion of their home system, they had reverse-engineered cosmic horror technology, improved upon it, and begun mass production of weapons that violated several fundamental laws of physics. Within 96 hours, they launched what they called Operation Cosmic Cleanup. I should have realized that any military operation with such a casual name would be absolutely terrifying in practice. "Attention, galactic community," Admiral Kane announced in a broadcast transmitted to every civilized world. Phase 1 of our defensive operations has concluded successfully. We have neutralized the immediate threat to Earth and collected sufficient intelligence about void spawn capabilities and weaknesses. She paused, and I detected that familiar human expression that had begun to fill me with dread. Phase 2 begins now. We are taking the fight to them. Taking the fight to them? I repeated weakly. The cosmic horrors are spread across half the galaxy. Apparently, Zal Prime observed, humans consider that a target-rich environment rather than an insurmountable obstacle. The human fleet that departed Earth 3 days later defied every principle of military logistics I had studied. Instead of a few heavily armed warships, they launched over 3,000 vessels of various sizes and configurations. Cargo ships retrofitted with reality anchor weapons, science vessels equipped with dimensional manipulation technology, and purpose-built hunter-killer craft designed specifically for tracking cosmic horror across multiple dimensions. But the most disturbing aspect was not the size of their fleet. It was their strategy. Captain Morrison, now commanding the Human Expeditionary Force, explained their approach during a briefing that I managed to intercept. Standard military doctrine suggests establishing defensive positions and waiting for the enemy to come to us, he began. However, the void spawn have demonstrated that they can unmake entire star systems if left alone. Therefore, we are implementing aggressive pursuit tactics. Aggressive pursuit tactics? Asked General Hayes. We are going to hunt them down, one by one, across every star system they have infiltrated, and we are going to eliminate them using their own abilities turned against them. He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy with red markers indicating known void spawn positions. Our modified dimensional phase shifters allow us to track cosmic horror across parallel realities. Our improved reality anchors can force them into normal space where they become vulnerable. And our weaponized space-time distortion generators can unmake them the same way they unmake other things. Dr. Foster joined the briefing with her latest research update. We have also developed what we are calling predator variants of their abilities, she reported. Instead of using dimensional manipulation for unmaking things, we have adapted it for hunting. We can now track prey across multiple realities, phase through obstacles that would normally provide cover, and strike from directions that technically do not exist. Prey? I whispered to Zal Prime. She is referring to cosmic horror as prey. Affirmative. Humans appear to have redefined the food chain. The human hunting fleet spread out across the galaxy with the efficiency of a well-coordinated military operation. But what they accomplished was more like an extermination campaign. The first reports came from the Vega sector, where a pack of void spawn had been consuming the remains of several destroyed civilizations. Contact with hostile entities in Grid 77 Alpha reported Captain Lisa Chen from the hunter-killer vessel Nemesis. 3 Class 4 cosmic horrors detected, engaging with improved reality manipulation weapons. The battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. Hostile entities neutralized, Chen reported. We have collected tissue samples and energy signatures for further analysis. Proceeding to next target zone. 14 minutes, I noted in my report. Humans eliminated 3 cosmic horrors in 14 minutes using their own abilities against them. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. Human hunting packs would locate void spawn concentrations, engage them with superior versions of their own technology, and systematically eliminate them while collecting specimens for continued research. But the most disturbing reports came from civilizations that had thought themselves safely hidden. The Zilani Confederation, still concealed behind their sector-wide cloaking fields, received an unexpected communication. Zilani friends. Came Admiral Kane's transmission, somehow penetrating their advanced stealth technology. We are conducting cleanup operations in your region. Please maintain your current concealment protocols while we eliminate the cosmic horror entities currently operating 17 light-years from your hidden worlds. The Zilani response was immediate panic. How did they find us? Zilani Prime Coordinator Velsaris transmitted on encrypted channels. How did they detect entities we cannot even observe? How are they operating in our space without triggering our sensors? Simple, Admiral Kane replied, apparently monitoring their encrypted communications as well. We are using modified void spawn technology. We can phase between dimensions, track prey across parallel realities, and exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Your cloaking technology is impressive, but it only works in normal space. The human fleet eliminated 4 void spawn entities in Zilani space before the Confederation even detected their presence. Similar incidents occurred throughout the galaxy. The mechanical forge mines, still fleeing toward distant galaxies, were overtaken by human vessels that phased through normal space to intercept them. Attention, Forge Mine Fleet, came the transmission from Captain Morrison. We have eliminated the cosmic horror entities that were pursuing you. You may discontinue your evacuation procedures. How did you reach us? Asked Prime Processing Unit Delta 7. Our calculations indicated a 4,000-year journey to escape the threat zone. We used dimensional shortcuts, Morrison explained casually. Also, we upgraded your propulsion systems while you were not looking. You should reach the Andromeda Galaxy in about 6 months now instead of 4 millennia. The Forge Mines discovered that human engineering teams had somehow accessed their ships, improved their technology, and departed without triggering any security protocols. Even the Canthari War Masters, sealed behind the most powerful defensive systems in the galaxy, received visitors. Fortress Kepler Prime, this is Admiral Kane, came the transmission from inside their supposedly impregnable stronghold. We have eliminated the void spawn threat in your region. Also, we have improved your defensive systems by approximately 300%. You may resume in normal operations. War Master that Goron found himself face-to-face with humans who had somehow bypassed energy shields that could deflect stellar radiation. He penetrated fortress walls designed to survive galactic wars and upgraded military technology that had taken millennia to develop. How did you get inside our fortress? He demanded. We walked through the walls, Admiral Kane replied matter-of-factly. Your defenses are designed to stop conventional attacks. We are no longer conventional. Within 6 weeks of beginning their counter-offensive, humans had eliminated over 90% of the void spawn presence in the galaxy. They had not simply defeated cosmic horror. They had systematically hunted it to near extinction while simultaneously improving the defensive capabilities of every major civilization. This is unprecedented, I reported to the Council. Humanity has not just survived an extinction-level threat. They have eliminated it, reverse-engineered its abilities, and used those abilities to become something that may be significantly more dangerous than the original threat. More dangerous than cosmic horror? Asked Counselor Zax-9. Consider this, I replied. The void spawn were ancient entities that operated according to alien logic and incomprehensible motivations. They were terrifying because we could not understand or predict them. I paused, reviewing my weeks of observations. Humans are terrifying because we can understand them perfectly. They see problems and solve them through applied violence and weaponized creativity. They encounter superior technology and immediately improve upon it. They face extinction-level threats and treat them as learning opportunities. And now they possess cosmic horror abilities, Zax9 observed. Improved cosmic horror abilities, I corrected. They have taken powers that required millions of years to develop and made them more efficient, more precise, and more deadly in a matter of weeks. The final report from Admiral Kane confirmed my worst fears. Galactic cleanup operations are 97% complete, she announced. Remaining void spawn entities have been contained for ongoing research purposes. Human expeditionary forces are returning to Earth for debriefing and technology integration. She paused, and I detected something in her voice that made my sensory appendages tremble. We want to thank the galactic community for your cooperation during this crisis. We also want to assure everyone that humanity remains committed to peaceful coexistence with all civilized species. The transmission ended with what sounded like barely contained laughter. Peaceful coexistence, I repeated to Zal Prime. They have just demonstrated the ability to hunt cosmic horror across multiple dimensions, penetrate any defensive system in the galaxy, and improve upon technology they have never seen before. And they claim to be peaceful, my assistant observed. That, I replied, is the most terrifying thing they have said yet. 3 months have passed since the end of what the humans have designated the Void Spawn incident. I have spent that time reviewing my observations, analyzing the data, and trying to understand exactly what I witnessed. The Council requested a comprehensive report on the crisis and humanity's response. What I submitted challenged every assumption we have made about galactic power structures, evolutionary development, and the nature of existential threats. My conclusions are as follows. First, the Void Spawn were never the real threat. Yes, they were ancient cosmic horrors capable of unmaking reality itself. Yes, they had consumed dozens of civilizations and could have destroyed every inhabited world in the galaxy. But they were, ultimately, a known quantity operating according to predictable patterns. Humanity is not predictable. Second, we fundamentally misunderstood what we were observing. I began this documentation believing I was recording the final days of human civilization. Instead, I documented the moment when humanity transitioned from a minor spacefaring species to the galaxy's new apex predator. The humans have not simply returned to their previous activities. They have established cosmic horror research stations throughout their space, where they continue studying captured void spawn specimens. Dr. Foster's latest reports indicate they are developing new applications for reality manipulation technology that make their previous weapons seem primitive by comparison. They have also begun what they call defensive cooperation initiatives with other galactic civilizations. This involves installing human-designed reality anchors and dimensional defense systems on worlds throughout the galaxy. Every species has accepted these gifts because refusing protection from beings who can hunt cosmic horror across multiple dimensions seems inadvisable. But the most disturbing development is their casual attitude toward their new abilities. Yesterday, Admiral Kane transmitted a routine diplomatic message to the Galactic Council. She delivered it while simultaneously existing in 17 different dimensions, speaking from a location that technically did not exist, and using technology that required her to be partially unmade during the conversation. She acted as if this was completely normal. The humans have not just defeated cosmic horror. They have domesticated it, improved it, and integrated it into their daily operations. They have taken abilities that took ancient entities millions of years to develop and made them routine tools for space exploration, scientific research, and military applications. In my final report to the Council, I wrote, humanity has demonstrated that there is no force in the universe too ancient, too powerful, or too alien for them to find a way to kill it, capture it, study it, and make it better. The void spawn crisis is over. The human era has begun. I have one final observation to add to the official record. Throughout this crisis, every civilized species responded to cosmic horror with logical fear and appropriate survival protocols. Only humanity looked at extinction incarnate and asked, "How can we use this?" That difference, I believe, explains everything about why they won and why the rest of us should be very, very careful about what we do next. The galaxy has a new apex predator, and they think cosmic horror makes excellent research material.